4 years. 3 jobs. Countless nights surviving on ramen, scraping by, pushing through exhaustion to earn my degree. I thought I was fighting for my future, proving my strength. But at my graduation dinner, one sentence shattered everything I believed about my family. My grandma, with pride in her eyes, said, "Hope the $3,000 monthly helped, Sienna." I froze. What money? That question uncovered a betrayal so deep it broke my world apart. $156,000 meant for me, gone. That moment didn't just change my life, it forced me to face a truth I never saw coming. I'm Sienna Whitlock, 25, fresh out of Northeastern University in Boston, where I earned my business degree through sheer grit. This isn't just a story, it's my story, raw and unfiltered, about how a single moment exposed a lie that reshaped my understanding of family. Growing up, I trusted my parents implicitly. They preached hard work, sacrifice, living within our means. I believed them when they said college would be tough, that I'd need loans and jobs to make it. But that night at the restaurant, my grandma's words revealed a deception I never imagined. This video isn't just about pain, it's about finding strength in truth, about rebuilding when the people you love let you down. I'm sharing this for anyone who's felt trapped by family secrets or financial struggles, anyone who's wondered if their sacrifices were for nothing. Over the next 50 minutes, I'll take you through the shock, the confrontation, and the journey to reclaim my life. It's heavy, but it's real, and it taught me lessons I wish I'd known sooner, lessons that might help you too. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? Have you ever uncovered a family secret that turned your world upside down? Your stories mean everything to me. If this resonates, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey of truth and healing. Let's walk through this together, because sometimes, the hardest truths lead to the greatest freedom. I grew up in Lexington, Massachusetts, just a short drive from Boston's hustle and bustle. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved, and kids rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on. Our house was modest, 2 stories, faded blue paint, a small backyard where I'd kick a soccer ball with my brother Bryce. Nothing about it screamed wealth, and my parents, Corinne and Leonard Whitlock, made sure we knew it. They were the kind of people who'd check the thermostat twice to save a few bucks. Every dinner, the conversation turned to money, or the lack of it. "Bills are piling up," Dad would sigh, pushing his glasses up his nose. "The mortgage isn't cheap," Mom would add, her fork hovering over her plate. They drilled financial responsibility into us like it was a family mantra. "Live within your means, Sienna," they'd say, their voices heavy with the weight of raising 2 kids in a world that felt increasingly expensive. I soaked it all in, believing we were just an average middle-class family scraping by. I didn't question it. Why would I? They were my parents, the ones who tucked me in, who cheered at my science fairs. I trusted them completely, never imagining the truth they were hiding. Looking back, those dinner table sighs weren't just about bills, they were a performance, one I wouldn't understand until years later. Getting accepted to Northeastern University was a dream come true. I'd worked hard in high school, staying up late to perfect essays, chasing that partial scholarship like it was my ticket to a better life. When the acceptance letter arrived, I ran to show my parents, grinning like I'd won the lottery. But their smiles were tight, their eyes darting to each other. They sat me down with a stack of spreadsheets, their faces serious. "We're so proud, Sienna," Mom said, "but college is expensive. We'll help as much as we can, but you'll need loans and part-time jobs." I nodded, determined to prove I could handle it. I had no idea what I was signing up for. By sophomore year, I was drowning in responsibilities. I worked 3 jobs to keep up with tuition and rent. Mornings, I shelved books at the campus library, the quiet hum of fluorescent lights my only break from chaos. Evenings, I waited tables at a sports bar, dodging rowdy customers and balancing trays of wings until my arms ached. Weekends, I tutored online, explaining algebra to high schoolers while fighting my own exhaustion. I lived in a basement apartment with 3 roommates, a damp, creaky place that flooded every spring, leaving us mopping up murky water. My diet was a sad rotation of ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, sometimes just the bread when I couldn't afford the spread. I'd lie in bed, calculating how to stretch $20 until the next paycheck, wondering if this was what college was supposed to be. My parents called occasionally, offering sympathy but no real help. "You're doing great," they'd say. "This is building character." I believed them, thinking this was just how it worked, that everyone struggled like this. But deep down, a quiet voice wondered why it felt so impossibly hard. College wasn't just hard, it was relentless. While my classmates jetted off to Mexico for spring break, I picked up extra shifts at the sports bar, serving beers to cheering fans while my feet throbbed. I'd watch their Instagram stories, beaches, cocktails, carefree smiles, and feel a pang of envy I couldn't shake. Junior year was the worst. My laptop, a hand-me-down already on its last legs, died right before finals. I panicked, calling my parents for help. "We're stretched thin, Sienna," Dad said, his voice apologetic but firm. I spent hours begging the computer lab manager for extra access, studying in a cold, crowded room until midnight. Another time, sophomore year, I caught pneumonia after walking to work in a freezing rainstorm. My car's heater had broken, and I couldn't afford repairs, let alone a doctor's visit. I coughed through shifts, too stubborn, or too broke, to take time off. I skipped meals to save money, my stomach growling during lectures. Once, I had to choose between paying rent and buying textbooks. I chose rent, photocopying pages from a friend's book in the library. Every sacrifice felt like proof of my independence, my grit. I thought I was earning my parents' pride, showing them I could stand on my own. But each missed opportunity, study abroad programs, internships, even just a night out with friends, chipped away at me. I wasn't living, I was surviving. And through it all, I kept telling myself this was normal, that everyone went through this to earn a degree. I didn't know then that my struggles were built on a lie, one that would unravel in the most unexpected way. The weight of college wasn't just financial, it was emotional, a slow grind that left me hollow. I'd lie awake in that damp basement apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering why I was always so tired, why every day felt like a battle. I thought this was the college experience, that I was building character, proving my worth. My parents' words echoed in my head, "You're strong, Sienna. This is how you grow." I wanted so badly to make them proud, to show I could handle anything. But the exhaustion was relentless, seeping into my bones. I lost friends because I never had time to hang out, always rushing from one job to another. I skipped doctor's appointments, ignored fevers, told myself I'd push through. Some nights, I'd cry alone, wondering if I was failing at this independence thing. But one person kept me grounded, my grandma Beatrice, who lived 2 states away in Connecticut. Her weekly calls were my lifeline. "How's my brilliant girl doing?" she'd ask, her voice warm and steady. Even when I was too tired to talk, I'd listen to her stories, her garden, her book club, feeling seen for the first time in weeks. She sent care packages with cookies and handwritten notes, little reminders that someone believed in me. I never told her how hard things were, I didn't want to worry her. I thought she was just being supportive, not knowing she was doing so much more. Those calls gave me the strength to keep going, to believe I could make it to graduation. Little did I know, her support ran deeper than I ever imagined, and the truth about it would change everything. Graduation day was my triumph, the culmination of 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears to earn my business degree from Northeastern University. I'd clawed my way through exhaustion, debt, and endless shifts, but I'd done it. That evening, my family gathered to celebrate at Bellini's, a fancy restaurant in the heart of Boston. The place was unlike anywhere I'd ever been, crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, casting soft light on crisp white tablecloths. Servers in pressed black uniforms glided between tables, delivering plates that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I felt out of place, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. My parents, Corinne and Leonard Whitlock, didn't seem to share my unease. They sat across from me, all smiles, as if this extravagance was normal. Dad raised a menu and, without blinking, ordered a $200 bottle of champagne, his voice casual, like he did this every day. I watched Mom adjust her new designer handbag, its sleek leather catching the light. Dad's wrist gleamed with a watch I'd never seen before, polished and expensive. Something felt wrong, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. I'd spent years pinching pennies, counting every dollar to survive, while they sat here, acting like money was no issue. I tried to push the feeling aside. This was my night, after all. I'd earned this moment. But as the champagne arrived, bubbles rising in delicate flutes, that nagging sense of unease settled deeper. I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't the family I knew, the one always complaining about bills and budgets. Looking back, I realized those small details, Mom's bag, Dad's watch, their carefree spending, were the first cracks in the facade they'd built. I just didn't know how deep those cracks went, or how soon they'd shatter everything I thought I understood about my family. The table at Bellini's buzzed with a strange mix of celebration and tension. My younger brother, Bryce, 20 and a freshman at Boston College, slouched in his chair, scrolling on his brand new iPhone. He was talking about his weekend trips with friends, skiing in Vermont, concerts in New York, like it was nothing. I envied his ease, the way he never seemed to worry about money. He'd always had nicer things than me, new clothes, the latest gadgets. I chalked it up to him being better at budgeting, maybe picking up side gigs he didn't mention. But something about his nonchalance grated on me that night. Across the table, Aunt Nora, my mom's sister, kept shooting me sympathetic looks. She'd always been the family truth-teller, never afraid to call out inconsistencies. "You look tired, Sienna," she said softly, her hand brushing my arm. I laughed it off, but her eyes held a knowing glint, like she sensed something I didn't. Uncle Gideon, my dad's brother, was the opposite, distracted, checking his watch every few minutes, his businessman energy scanning the room for something more important. I felt a pang of self-consciousness, sitting there in my thrift store dress, surrounded by this opulence. Then Grandma Beatrice arrived, fashionably late as always, her presence like a burst of warmth in the sterile elegance of Bellini's. Her eyes sparkled with pride as she made her way to the table, a wrapped gift in hand. "There's my brilliant granddaughter," she said, her voice carrying the kind of love that made me feel seen. She apologized for the traffic from Hartford, settling beside me with a smile that eased my nerves. But as she chatted, I noticed Mom's posture stiffen, her fingers fidgeting with her napkin. Dad's smile seemed forced, his eyes darting to Mom. I didn't understand it then, but those small signs were the prelude to a truth that would unravel everything. The moment that changed everything came so quietly, wrapped in Grandma Beatrice's warm, unsuspecting voice. She hugged me tightly, her perfume familiar and comforting, and said, "Hope the $3,000 monthly helped, Sienna. I'm so proud of you." I froze, my mind stumbling over her words. "What money?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her face fell, confusion clouding her eyes. The table went deathly silent, the clink of glasses and hum of nearby conversations fading into a void. Grandma's voice tightened as she explained, for 4 years, since the August before my freshman year, she'd been sending $3,000 every month to my parents' joint account, specifically for my education. That was $156,000, money meant to cover tuition, books, a decent apartment, maybe even a study abroad program. Money I never saw a cent of. My heart pounded as I did the math. That money could have meant no student loans, no $45,000 debt hanging over me. No nights eating ramen because I couldn't afford groceries. No walking to work in the freezing rain, catching pneumonia because I couldn't fix my car. No skipping doctor's visits, no anxiety attacks over making rent. My parents' faces told the story before they spoke a word. Mom's hand froze midair, her wine glass trembling. Dad stared at his plate, his jaw tight, the color drained from his face. I looked at them, waiting for an explanation, but all I got was silence. In that moment, the weight of 4 years crashed over me. Every late-night shift, every missed opportunity, every time I'd pushed through exhaustion thinking it was just the college experience, it was all unnecessary. They'd let me struggle, let me suffer, while sitting on a fortune meant for me. Grandma's voice cut through the silence, sharp now, demanding answers. "You told me she was getting it," she said, her eyes boring into my parents'. I felt like I was falling, the ground slipping out from under me. The family I'd trusted, the parents I'd worked so hard to make proud, had been lying to me for years. It wasn't just money they'd taken, it was my health, my youth, my peace. The silence at the table didn't last long, but it felt like an eternity. Mom stammered, her voice shaky, "It went to family expenses, Beatrice. You know how expensive college is." Dad tried to laugh it off, his voice hollow. "There's a misunderstanding here," he said, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I wasn't buying it. My mind was racing, piecing together the lies. "Family expenses?" I repeated, my voice louder now, trembling with a mix of shock and anger. "I took out $45,000 in loans. I worked 3 jobs. I lived in a basement that flooded every spring." "What family expenses?" Bryce, who'd been glued to his phone, looked up, confused. "Wait, you didn't get an allowance?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "They give me $1,000 a month for school stuff. I thought you got the same." Another blow. My brother, carefree and comfortable, had been getting money I never knew existed. Money that should have been mine. Aunt Nora's eyes narrowed, her suspicions confirmed. "I knew something was off," she said, her voice low but cutting. "You've been living like royalty while Sienna's starving." Uncle Gideon leaned back, arms crossed, his face grim. The restaurant around us carried on, diners chatting, glasses clinking, but our table was a battlefield. I felt the room spin, my chest tight with betrayal. All those years of struggle, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, the times I'd skipped meals to pay rent, they'd been lying. They'd watched me burn out, watched me get sick, knowing they had $156,000 meant for me. Grandma's hand shook as she set her glass down. "I trusted you," she said to my parents, her voice breaking. "I sent that money for Sienna's education, not your vacations." Mom tried again, her voice desperate. "We used it for the family, to keep things stable." But her words felt like another lie, piling onto the heap of deceit. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. The family I'd believed in, the one I'd worked so hard to make proud, was a mirage. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was sit there, drowning in the realization that everything I'd endured was built on their betrayal. The silence at Bellini's was deafening, the weight of Grandma Beatrice's words hanging over the table like a storm cloud. My heart pounded as I stared at my parents, Corinne and Leonard Whitlock, their faces pale, their eyes avoiding mine. Grandma had just revealed they'd been sent $3,000 every month for my education, $156,000 total, and I hadn't seen a dime. I couldn't stay quiet. "What did you do with it?" I demanded, my voice shaking but sharp. Mom's lips parted, her words stumbling out. "It helped with your tuition, Sienna," she said, but her voice wavered, and I knew she was lying. "Tuition?" I shot back, my hands trembling on the table. "I took out $45,000 in loans. I worked 3 jobs to pay for school. You watched me struggle." Dad tried to step in, his tone patronizing, like he was explaining something to a child. College affects the whole family budget, Sienna. We had to make tough choices. His words felt like a slap. Tough choices? I'd been eating ramen, skipping doctor's visits, working until my body gave out, while they sat here sipping $200 champagne. Grandma Beatrice's voice cut through, sharp and unyielding. That money was for Sienna, not you, she snapped, her eyes blazing with betrayal. I sent it to help my granddaughter, not to fund your lifestyle. The table froze again, the clinking of glasses from nearby diners a stark contrast to our tension. Then Bryce, my 20-year-old brother, looked up from his phone, confusion on his face. Wait, he said, his voice innocent but piercing. You guys give me $1,000 a month for school stuff. Doesn't Sienna get that too? My stomach dropped. He thought I'd been getting the same allowance, living the same carefree life he did. I hadn't. I was shaking now, piecing together the lies. Aunt Nora's face hardened, her suspicions confirmed. You've been funneling her money to Bryce? She asked, her voice low but venomous. Uncle Gideon shook his head, his businessman's composure cracking. I felt like I was unraveling, the family I'd trusted for 25 years dissolving before my eyes. Every sacrifice I'd made, every sleepless night, every moment I'd pushed through pain, they'd known, and they'd let it happen. The truth was a knife, cutting deeper with every word. Grandma Beatrice wasn't done. Her hands shook as she leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with anger. I want to see the bank statements, she said, her gaze locked on my parents. Every single one. Now. Mom's face crumpled, her hands fumbling with her purse as if searching for an escape. Dad tried to deflect, his laugh forced. This is a celebration, Beatrice. Let's not ruin it. But Grandma wasn't having it, and neither was I. Show us, I said, my voice louder now, fueled by a rage I didn't know I had. The room felt smaller, the chandeliers above us casting harsh shadows. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice barely audible. We used it for family expenses, she admitted. The kitchen remodel, some vacations, things we needed. Dad nodded, adding, a boat, too. It was for all of us. A boat? Vacations? I felt sick, my mind flashing back to the nights I'd skipped meals to save a few dollars, the times I'd worked double shifts with a fever. Then came the worst blow. There's more, Mom whispered, her eyes on the table. We took out loans in your name, Sienna. About $20,000. Fraud. They'd committed fraud, forging my name while I was breaking my back to survive. My vision blurred, not from tears but from pure disbelief. Grandma's voice trembled with fury. You stole from her, she said. From both of us. Later, I found an email Mom sent to Grandma, claiming I was studying abroad in London to justify the continued payments, a complete fabrication. Another detail hit hard. One bank statement showed a $10,000 payment for a Caribbean cruise the same month I'd begged for $200 for textbooks. All those years, I'd been starving, sick, and stressed, thinking it was my burden to bear. I'd gotten shingles from the stress, my body breaking under the weight of their lies. Every sacrifice, every missed spring break, every night I'd cried over unpaid bills, was unnecessary. They'd watched me suffer, knowing they had $156,000 meant for me. Aunt Nora's voice broke through my haze. How could you do this to her? She asked, her words a quiet accusation. I couldn't breathe, the betrayal sinking deeper with every revelation. My parents hadn't just taken money, they'd taken my trust, my health, my hope. I couldn't stay at that table, surrounded by lies and half-hearted excuses. The air in Bellini's felt thick, suffocating, the chatter of other diners a cruel reminder of the normalcy I'd lost. My hand shook as I grabbed my purse, my chair scraping against the floor. Sienna, wait, Dad called, his voice desperate, but I didn't look back. I pushed through the restaurant, past the gleaming chandeliers and polished servers, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Outside, the Boston night was cool, the city lights blurring through the tears I could no longer hold back. I slid into my car, the same beat-up sedan I'd driven through college, its heater still broken from the winter I couldn't afford repairs. Sitting there, alone, the weight of it all hit me. My parents had watched me suffer, watched me skip meals, work myself sick, beg for scraps, while living off $156,000 meant for my education. They'd sipped champagne and bought boats while I ate ramen and fought pneumonia. They'd forged loans in my name, $20,000 of debt I didn't even know about, and sent emails lying about my life to keep the money flowing. I thought of Mom's nervous texting at dinner, later revealed to be messages to their accountant, scrambling to cover their tracks. I thought of Bryce, blissfully unaware, spending his $1,000 monthly allowance while I scraped by. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal, a violation of the trust I'd placed in them my entire life. I'd spent 25 years trying to make them proud, believing their sighs about bills, their lectures about sacrifice. It was all a performance, a carefully crafted lie to keep me in the dark. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable, but something else stirred inside me, a spark of resolve. I wasn't going to let them control my future anymore. They'd taken enough. I wiped my eyes, my hands still trembling, and pulled out my phone. I called Grandma Beatrice, my voice cracking as I said, "We need to talk. Tomorrow." She didn't hesitate. "I'm with you, Sienna," she said, her voice steady, a lifeline in the chaos. We made a plan to meet the next day, to figure out what came next, answers, accountability, maybe even justice. As I hung up, I took a deep breath, the city lights steadying me. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, a life built on truth, not lies. I'd spent 4 years fighting for a degree, but now I was fighting for myself. The morning after that disastrous dinner at Bellini's, I woke up feeling like the world had shifted beneath me. My parents' betrayal, $156,000 meant for my education, vanished into their luxuries, was a wound that pulsed with every thought. I couldn't just sit with it. I needed answers, a plan, something to hold on to. So, I drove to a small cafe in Cambridge, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh coffee, to meet Grandma Beatrice and Aunt Nora. They were already there, waiting, their faces a mix of determination and heartbreak. Grandma's hands were steady, but her eyes were red. She'd been up all night, wrestling with the same betrayal I felt. Aunt Nora, always the fierce one, gripped her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her calm. Then Vivian Holt walked in, a financial crimes attorney with a sharp gaze and a briefcase full of purpose. She sat down, her voice calm but firm, and laid out the reality of what my parents had done. "This isn't just mismanagement, Sienna," she said. "Taking out $20,000 in loans in your name is identity theft. Using Beatrice's money for themselves, especially since she's over 65, could be elder financial abuse." My stomach churned at the words, crimes, legal terms that felt too big for the parents I'd loved my whole life. Vivian explained our options. We could pursue criminal charges, which might mean jail time for Mom and Dad, or we could negotiate a settlement to recover what was left. Grandma slid a folder across the table, her hands trembling slightly. Inside were bank statements, proof of $3,000 sent every month for 4 years, and emails from my parents, claiming the money was covering my tuition, my rent, my life. One email stood out, a lie so blatant it made my chest tight. Mom had written to Grandma, saying I was thriving at Northeastern, even hinting at a study abroad program that never existed. I stared at those papers, the numbers and words blurring together. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust, broken beyond repair. Grandma's voice was soft but resolute. "We're going to make this right, Sienna," she said. "For you." I nodded, feeling a flicker of strength. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this fight. Walking back into my childhood home in Lexington felt like stepping into a stranger's house. The familiar walls, where I'd hung my high school art projects, where we'd eaten countless dinners filled with mom's sighs about bills, felt foreign now, tainted by lies. My parents were in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch, as if they'd been expecting me. Dad's glasses sat low on his nose, his hands clasped too tightly. Mom's eyes were puffy, her designer bag nowhere in sight. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I need the truth, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Every record, every transaction. Now. They hesitated, exchanging glances, but I wasn't backing down. Or I call the police, I added, the words heavy but necessary. Slowly, they started talking. They admitted to spending Grandma's money on luxuries, a kitchen remodel with marble countertops, a boat docked at some marina I'd never seen, cruises to Bermuda that I'd only heard about in passing. Then came the gut punch. They'd opened a $5,000 credit card in my name, racking up charges for things like Bryce's failed podcast equipment. My brother, who wasn't there, had no idea his allowance was part of this mess. The worst part came when they handed over bank statements, pages that laid bare their betrayal. One line stopped me cold, a $10,000 payment for a Caribbean cruise, dated the same month I'd called Mom, begging for $200 to buy textbooks. I'd spent that semester photocopying pages from a friend's book, staying up late in the library to keep up. They'd been sipping cocktails on a ship while I struggled to afford food. I felt sick, my hands shaking as I clutched the papers. How could you? I asked, my voice breaking. Mom tried to explain, her words tumbling out. We thought we were balancing things, keeping the family afloat. Dad nodded, his voice quiet. We didn't mean to hurt you. But their excuses felt hollow, like ash in my mouth. They'd watched me work myself to the bone, knowing they had money meant for me. Aunt Nora, who'd come with me, stood silently, her presence a quiet support. I left those statements on the table, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about reclaiming my life from their lies. Vivienne Holt moved fast. Back at her office, she drafted a settlement that laid out clear terms. My parents would pay off the $45,000 in student loans they'd forced me to take, return the remaining $111,000 of Grandma's money with interest, and transfer the title of my beat-up sedan, which they'd technically owned. It was a legal lifeline, a way to avoid dragging this through court, to spare Grandma the pain of seeing her daughter and son-in-law in jail. They signed the agreement, their signatures shaky on the page, knowing criminal charges were the alternative. Vivienne warned them, one misstep, and we'd escalate. I should have felt relief watching them sign, knowing the loans that had haunted me were being erased, that I'd have a car in my name, that some of the money would come back. But as I sat there, the papers spread out before me, all I felt was a deep, aching emptiness. This wasn't just about the $156,000 they'd taken. It was about the years of gaslighting, the way they'd made me believe my struggles were my fault, that scraping by on ramen and working 3 jobs was just building character. They'd let me get sick, pneumonia, shingles, anxiety attacks, knowing they could have eased my burden. They'd let me beg for scraps while they spent $10,000 on a cruise, $5,000 on a credit card in my name, thousands more on a boat and a lifestyle I'd never been part of. I thought of the email Mom sent Grandma, lying about my supposed study abroad in London, a fiction to keep the money flowing. I thought of every time they'd said, "We're stretched thin," while their kitchen gleamed with new appliances. The betrayal cut deeper than the money. It was the loss of the parents I thought I had, the ones I'd worked so hard to make proud. I felt broken, like the foundation of my life had crumbled. But in that brokenness, something else stirred, a quiet strength, a determination I hadn't known I had. I wasn't the naive girl who'd trusted them blindly anymore. I was 25, a college graduate, and I'd survived their lies. Sitting in that office, watching Vivienne file the settlement, I realized I was ready to take back my life. Not just the money, but my future, my peace, my truth. Grandma squeezed my hand, her eyes fierce with love. "You're stronger than you know," she said. And for the first time, I believed her. After the settlement was signed, everything started to change, not just my bank account, but the way I saw my future. The $45,000 in student loans that had loomed over me like a dark cloud were paid off, wiped clean by the agreement my parents had no choice but to sign. The first payments from the remaining $111,000 started coming in, a slow trickle of what was rightfully mine. For the first time in years, I felt a weight lift, a sense of possibility I hadn't dared to imagine. I packed up my things and left that damp, flooded basement apartment in Boston, the one that smelled of mildew and held too many memories of sleepless nights. I moved into a clean, one-bedroom apartment with big windows and a view of the Charles River, a place that felt like a fresh start. I started my marketing job, a real career with a steady salary, not the patchwork of library shifts, bar tips, and tutoring gigs I'd juggled through college. For the first time, I could walk into a grocery store without mentally tallying every cent, without choosing between milk and rent. I bought fresh vegetables, good coffee, things that felt like luxuries after years of ramen and peanut butter. I even opened a savings account, watching the balance grow bit by bit. I started investing, small amounts at first, learning about mutual funds and retirement plans, things I'd never dreamed of before, when survival was my only goal. This wasn't just financial independence, it was freedom from the constant panic that had defined my college years. I wasn't rich, but I was no longer drowning. And that feeling, that tiny spark of control over my own life, was everything. I'd spent so long believing struggle was my lot, but now, standing in my new apartment, I realized I could build something better, something mine. The financial wins were huge, but the real healing happened inside, in a quiet therapy office with Dr. Elise Carver. She was a game changer, a steady guide through the mess of emotions left by my parents' betrayal. At first, I didn't know how to talk about it, the $156,000 they'd taken, the loans in my name, the years of gaslighting that made me think my struggles were normal. Dr. Carver helped me name it, financial abuse. That term hit hard, reframing everything. "They made you feel like your pain was your fault," she said, and I realized she was right. They'd let me work myself sick, pneumonia, shingles, anxiety attacks, while they spent my money on cruises and a boat. I wasn't weak for struggling through college, I was strong for surviving it. Therapy taught me to see my resilience, to stop blaming myself for their lies. I started rebuilding bonds that mattered. Grandma Beatrice became my rock, her fierce love a constant reminder that I was enough. We'd talk for hours, her stories of resilience inspiring me to keep going. My brother Bryce, who'd been clueless about the money, woke up to the truth. He got a job, cut off mom and dad's allowance, and started calling me, not to apologize but to rebuild what we'd lost. Those conversations, awkward at first, became a lifeline. I learned to forgive him, not for his sake, but for mine. Dr. Carver showed me that healing wasn't about erasing the pain, it was about carrying it differently, letting it make me stronger. Each session peeled back another layer of hurt, revealing a version of myself I hadn't known, someone capable of standing tall, even after being broken. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was starting to live. Healing didn't stop with therapy, it grew into something bigger, a purpose I hadn't expected. I started mentoring college students through a financial literacy program, sharing the lessons I wished I'd known at 18. I told them about budgeting, about spotting red flags in family dynamics, about trusting their instincts when something felt off. It wasn't just about money, it was about empowerment, about giving them the tools to avoid the traps I'd fallen into. One student, Lila, reminded me so much of myself, working 2 jobs, studying late, always on the edge of burnout. I sat with her one afternoon, going over her budget, showing her how to save a little each month. When she smiled, saying, "I didn't know I could do this," I felt something shift inside me. Helping her felt like healing a piece of my own past, like I was reaching back to the girl who'd cried alone in a flooded basement, telling her she'd be okay. That work gave me a sense of purpose I'd never had, a reason to keep moving forward. At the same time, I set firm boundaries with my parents. No more long, guilt-laden calls. No more letting them pull me back into their drama. I kept contact brief, short texts, occasional check-ins, nothing more. They tried to justify their actions, saying they'd been protecting the family, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I wasn't ready to forgive, and I might never be. Their betrayal, $156,000 gone, $20,000 in fraudulent loans, a $5,000 credit card in my name, had cost me more than money. It had cost me trust, years of my health, my peace. But those boundaries gave me space to breathe, to build a life on my terms. I moved forward, not because I'd forgotten, but because I refused to let their lies define me. Mentoring, saving, living in my new apartment, it all felt like reclaiming pieces of myself they'd tried to take. I started a blog to share my story, posting tips on budgeting and setting boundaries, hoping to reach others who felt trapped. Every time I hit publish, I felt stronger, like I was turning my pain into something that could help someone else. This wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine, and I was building it with truth, not lies. This journey started with a single sentence at my graduation dinner, a moment that shattered my trust in the family I thought I knew. My parents' betrayal, hiding $156,000 meant for my education, forging loans in my name, broke something deep inside me. I lost the parents I'd believed in, the ones I'd spent years trying to make proud. But in that loss, I found something unexpected, myself. The truth, as painful as it was, became my freedom. It forced me to face the lies, to confront the gaslighting that made me think my struggles were my fault. I'm not the same Sienna who walked into Bellini's that night, naive and trusting. I'm stronger now, freer, real. If you're facing family secrets or financial struggles, know this: the truth can hurt like nothing else, but it can also set you free. It's not easy to uncover betrayal, to rebuild when the ground feels gone. But on the other side of that pain is a version of you that's resilient, that knows its worth. You're not alone in this. My story isn't just mine, it's for anyone who's ever felt trapped by lies, searching for a way forward. 3 lessons carried me through this storm, and I hope they help you too. First, trust your instincts. If something feels off about money, whether it's family, friends, or finances, don't ignore it. That nagging feeling saved me, pushed me to dig for the truth. Second, set boundaries to protect your peace. My parents' betrayal taught me to draw lines, to say no to emotional manipulation, to choose myself. It's not selfish, it's survival. Third, seek support. Therapy with Dr. Elise Carver helped me see my strength, not my shame. Friends, mentors, even strangers who've walked this path, they can lift you up when you're breaking. These lessons weren't easy to learn. They came from nights of tears, from facing a family that wasn't what it seemed. But they gave me tools to rebuild, to stand taller than I ever thought I could. If you're struggling, feeling like your world's been turned upside down, hold on to these: your instincts, your boundaries, your support system. They're your anchors, your way through the pain. You're stronger than you know, and these lessons can light the path to a life that's yours, built on truth. I shared this story because I know I'm not the only one who's faced betrayal, who's felt the sting of family secrets or financial manipulation. If you've been through something like this, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. Have you ever uncovered a truth that changed everything? Let's start that conversation. If this story resonated, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell to join me on this journey of rebuilding trust and finding freedom. I've started a blog where I'm sharing financial tips, budgeting tricks, ways to spot red flags, advice on setting boundaries. Check the link below to dive in. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might be stuck in their own storm. Sparking these conversations can make a difference, can remind us we're not alone. Thank you for listening, for being here through this raw, real story. It's not the end, it's a beginning. The truth broke me open, but it also set me free. Let's keep building, keep healing, together.